That phrase has echoed through history like a silent command, carved into the psyche of empires, whispered in boardrooms, and tattooed invisibly onto the ambitions of those who crave power, not for good, not for truth, but for control. Imagine this: a man smiles on television. He says he cares. Behind him, another man signs a document that will destroy thousands of jobs. In a nearby office tower, a woman quietly rewrites a policy that will ruin families, but make her look efficient. Meanwhile, across the world, leaders sign deals with people they claim to oppose, funding the very chaos they condemn. The masks of morality stay on, the damage is done, and no one is held accountable. It is all invisible. You watch this unfold, yet the world does not seem to flinch. Why? Maybe you have felt it too. The sharp silence after betrayal, the manipulation that leaves no fingerprints, the charming boss who praises your work before stealing it, the friend who smiles while setting you up, the partner who rewrites the past, convinces you it is your fault, and calls it love. You have met them. You may still trust them, but behind their words lies something cold, calculating, and strategically cruel, a mindset built not on compassion, not even on morality, but on control. This is not fiction. This is Machiavellianism, one of the psychological pillars of the Dark Triad, a trio of personality traits so dangerous yet so successful that they have quietly risen to the top of society. The scariest part is not that these individuals exist, it is that the world, knowingly or unknowingly, rewards them. Have you ever wondered why some of the most ruthless people seem to rise higher faster and with fewer consequences? You are not imagining it. This video is not just about a personality trait, it is about an entire system that has been infected. Politics, corporations, media, education, even our homes. The infection spreads quietly. No bombs, no guns, only decisions, only deception, only design. But here lies the strange twist. The more successful they become, the more we admire them, we quote them, we vote for them, we promote them. And slowly the lines between manipulation and leadership dissolve. The dark becomes normal. It is not about villains wearing black. It is about those wearing suits, smiling calmly, making decisions that shape the future, while operating with no empathy, no guilt, and no real allegiance to truth. You may ask, how do you stop something you cannot see? That is the trick. Machiavellianism thrives in the invisible. It weaponizes charm, uses silence as a tool, and designs chaos so that it looks like progress. This is not conspiracy. This is dark psychology, backed by decades of research in clinical psychology, behavioral science, and philosophy. But the truth is not what you expect. What if the world has already been reshaped by these individuals? What if you have unknowingly supported, protected, or even emulated their behavior? It is not just about leaders, it is about relationships, families, work, friends, and how psychological manipulation slowly rewires your sense of trust, reality, and control. What is the cost of surviving in a world ruled by deception? Stay with me, because in this video, we are not just naming the enemy. We are opening the door to something most people never want to see. What happens when Machiavellianism is not just a trait, but a strategy, a system, a culture. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. You were told since childhood that power belongs to the good, that people who rise to the top must be smart, fair, and strong, that hard work and honesty would lead to reward, that those in charge earned their place because they care. We were taught to respect them. We were taught to follow, and we did. We believed that success was proof of virtue. We believed that someone with power must have done something right. We rarely asked what they did to get there. Now ask yourself, have you ever seen a kind person get stepped on? Have you ever watched someone lie, manipulate, and cheat their way up the ladder? Have you seen cruelty win and sincerity lose? This is the discomfort we carry. We want to believe in good leadership, but we keep seeing the opposite. The truth is, not all power is earned by ability or moral strength. Some power is built on silence, control, and calculation. This is where Machiavellianism lives. Machiavellianism is not just a label. It is a strategy, a way of thinking, a set of tools used to climb without conscience. Named after Niccolò Machiavelli, whose book The Prince shaped political thinking for centuries, it teaches how power can be gained by manipulation, not merit. In psychology, Machiavellianism is part of the Dark Triad. It is defined by traits such as strategic deceit, emotional coldness, and manipulation for personal gain. It was first measured through a tool called the Machiavellian scale, developed by psychologist Richard Christie and Florence Geis in the 1970s. People high in Machiavellianism are not driven by impulse like psychopaths. They are not addicted to admiration like narcissists. They are planners. They study people. They wait for the right moment. They never show what they really think. They do not need to lie loudly. They lie with omission. They do not fight. They divide. They do not take control by force. They wait for you to hand it to them. This personality type is more common than you think. In a 2010 study published in Personality and Individual Differences, researchers Delroy Paul, Hiss and Kevin Williams found that Machiavellian traits are strongly linked to leadership positions. The more Machiavellian someone is, the more likely they are to pursue and gain power in corporate and political environments. It makes sense. These people are not distracted by guilt or empathy. They do not waste energy on fairness. They focus on advantage. They say what you want to hear. They learn what you fear. They know how to use both. Have you ever met someone who always knew how to be in the right place at the right time, who always seemed untouchable, no matter what they did? That may not be luck. That may be a strategy. This kind of person does not care about being right. They care about looking right. They do not care about truth. They care about control. We fall for it because we want to. We want to believe people are what they say they are. We want to trust the smile, the title, the image. But that is the illusion, and we are taught not to question it. Here is a question you must consider. If someone wins using manipulation and they never get caught, do they feel guilty or do they feel smart? Now look at society, the people we celebrate, the systems we protect, the values we claim. What if some of it is built on the success of Machiavellian minds? Think about your workplace, your relationships, your government, your idols. Is the one in charge the most honest or the most clever? What we believe about power shapes how we respond to it. If we think power belongs to the good, we will obey it without thought. But if we realize power often rewards manipulation, we may see the world very differently. This is not a call for paranoia. It is a call for awareness. The lie is comfort. The truth is tension.
Machiavellianism is not a myth. It is measurable. It is studied. It is rewarded. And it is around us every day.
If you are still watching, you are not afraid to look at what others ignore. That matters. Now we ask you, what have you seen in your own life that made you question who really deserves power? Share it, say it, speak what others fear to say. Like this video if it wakes something up in you. Subscribe if you are ready to see what lies beneath the surface. Leave a comment that tells your truth. They are watching, but so are we. You have heard the word. You might have used it without knowing its full meaning. People call someone Machiavellian when they lie, manipulate, or betray. But what does it truly mean? Where does it begin? And more importantly, how does it survive? Machiavellianism is not just a trait. It is a worldview, a way of seeing people not as humans, but as tools, as pieces to move, as barriers to remove. It begins with a belief, quiet and absolute, that people are naive, and truth is for the weak. The term comes from Niccolò Machiavelli, a political philosopher from Florence. In the year 1532, his book The Prince was published. It told rulers not how to be good, but how to be effective. He argued that it is better to be feared than loved, that appearances matter more than intentions, that the ruler must be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. People misunderstood him. Some said he was warning us. Others said he was guiding tyrants. The truth sits between. He was not promoting evil. He was describing how power actually works. Modern psychology took his name and turned it into a measurement. In the 1970s, psychologist Richard Christie and Florence Geis created the Mach 4 scale, a questionnaire used to identify people with high Machiavellian traits. The questions did not ask if you are cruel, they asked if you believe in honesty, if you trust others, if you think manipulation is wrong. The more you disagreed, the higher your score. This is the danger. Machiavellian people do not see themselves as villains. They see themselves as realists. They believe others are weak for having morals. They do not hate rules. They simply see them as things that apply to other people. Psychologist Delroy Paulshoes studied this in detail. His research revealed that Machiavellianism is not about emotional impulse. It is not rage or madness. It is calm, quiet calculation. These individuals are aware of their behavior. They plan it. They track outcomes. They adjust to survive. They are often intelligent, articulate, and socially skilled. They know how to mirror emotion without feeling it. They listen, not to understand, but to extract. They flatter when needed, disappear when convenient, and strike only when safe. They rarely break rules. They bend them, and they do it so well that others believe they are following them. A Machiavellian leader does not scream. They delegate destruction. A Machiavellian friend does not insult. They guide you into doubt. A Machiavellian partner does not argue. They let you question your own worth until you surrender. Why do they do it? Not for pleasure, not for fun, but for advantage, for safety, for power. They believe the world is a game, a brutal, zero-sum competition where someone must lose. And if that is true, why not be the one who wins? Here is a thought to consider. If someone sees morality as weakness, and society keeps rewarding them, what kind of world are we building? Researchers at the University of British Columbia found that people with high Machiavellian scores are more likely to enter competitive fields: business, politics, finance, law. These roles reward results, not empathy. They promote outcomes, not ethics, and those who play the game best often rise highest. This is not theory. It is measurable, it is repeatable, and it is spreading. Have you ever met someone who smiled when others suffered, who seemed untouched by guilt, who always said the right thing but left you feeling wrong? You may have seen it, but could not name it. Now you can. Machiavellianism does not shout, it whispers, it blends in, it mimics sincerity, and that is what makes it so dangerous. When someone wins through deception, and they are celebrated, what message does that send to the rest of us? Should we play the same game, or resist it? That is a question each of us must answer. But before we do, we have to see how far it goes. How deep Machiavellianism has already taken root in society, and why we may be too late to stop it. You see success, wealth, charisma, you hear confidence, you read leadership, you trust the image, but what you rarely ask is who built it, how they built it, and who they stepped on to stand that tall. Machiavellianism thrives not in darkness, but in daylight. It hides in the plain sight of ambition, excellence, power. We do not see it because we are not taught to. Instead, we are told to admire it. We call it drive, we call it strategy, we call it influence. The label changes, the method stays the same. In modern society, Machiavellianism is not an exception. It is becoming a blueprint. It starts in education. In schools, children quickly learn that image matters more than substance, that grades mean more than kindness, that social games beat quiet effort. The charming bully, the strategic student, the one who always knows how to be seen. Those are the early signs. Then comes the workplace. Promotions go not to the kindest, but to the boldest, the person who can speak without saying much, who takes credit without earning it, who knows when to smile, when to flatter, when to let others fail in silence. In politics, it is even clearer. Promises are made to please, not to fulfill. Truth is twisted, truth is hidden, and sometimes truth is removed completely. The crowd cheers not for character, but for control. The politician who can manipulate perception becomes the winner, not the one who leads, but the one who deceives best. Researchers Peter Jonasson and Gregory Webster, in their 2010 study on workplace behaviors, found that individuals high in Machiavellianism were more likely to engage in unethical practices when they believed they would benefit and not be caught. It was not morality that held them back, it was risk. They do not ask if it is right, they ask if it is safe. This is not limited to high offices or large corporations. It happens in small teams, in families, in communities. The Machiavellian mind does not need size to operate. It only needs opportunity. You might work for one, you might live with one, you might vote for one, and never know it. Because they play long, they play slow, they build trust before they extract value. They protect their image more than their relationships. They always have a backup plan, and if things fall apart, they leave no trace. They do not need you to like them, they need you to need them. That is how they hold control. Social media has made this worse. Platforms reward appearance, status, and influence, not truth, not intention, not accountability. Those who can manipulate the algorithm win. Those who exploit attention grow. Those who mirror what people want to hear become icons. Many of them have no real self, only a brand, only a mask. And the more society rewards it, the more others copy it. That is the real danger. Machiavellianism spreads not just through leaders, it spreads through imitation. The young watch and learn. They see what works, and they adjust. Why be honest when lies get clicks? Why be generous when cruelty gets followers? You start to ask yourself, can a person survive in this world without adapting to it? Can we stay moral in systems that reward manipulation? We are surrounded by choices that are shaped by minds we will never meet. Company policies, political narratives, cultural movements, often designed not for people but for outcomes, not for health but for control. And most of it looks normal. That is the genius of it. The deception is so deep that the truth feels uncomfortable. So we go back to comfort, we go back to the lie. But once you begin to see how Machiavellianism operates, you notice it everywhere. The charm that feels too perfect, the leadership that never accepts blame, the success that comes with no soul behind it. So you must ask again, is the system broken, or was it always built this way? We often hear that evil is chaotic, impulsive, emotional, that those who do harm must be reckless or unstable. But what if the most dangerous ones are not loud, not unstable, not even angry? What if they are calm? In psychology, the Dark Triad includes 3 traits: narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Each one harmful in its own way, but only one is designed for long-term survival. That one is Machiavellianism, where psychopathy is driven by impulsivity and narcissism by admiration. Machiavellianism is driven by strategy, by results, by the ability to move without being seen. You may meet someone with narcissistic traits. They demand attention, they crave validation, they want to be seen. You may come across a person with psychopathic traits. They show no remorse, they act quickly, they harm without thought. But the Machiavellian individual, they do not need to be seen. They need to stay in control. Control over perception, control over emotion, control over outcomes. They can blend into both of those worlds. They can mimic narcissism when it benefits them. They can show coldness, like a psychopath, when it serves a goal. But unlike both, they rarely get caught because they calculate, because they adapt. This is why psychologists see Machiavellianism as the silent core of the Dark Triad. It connects the other two, but relies on long-term manipulation rather than emotional weakness. In a study led by psychologist Ki-Byung Lee, it was shown that individuals scoring high in Machiavellianism could suppress emotional reactions when faced with confrontation, not out of strength, but out of calculation. Emotional control is not a moral victory for them. It is a tool. They watch you before they speak. They learn your patterns, your habits, your fears. They do not attack weaknesses. They study them. Then they build plans around them. You may think you are in control, but they already predicted your move, and they made you think it was your idea. This kind of person is not always cruel in public. They are often polite, quiet, friendly. They can be patient with others. They know how to make people feel safe. They are experts in deflection. But ask yourself, do they show the same face to everyone? Or do they change depending on who is watching? Now consider this. If someone can play the role of victim, leader, and observer all at once, and do it with precision, are they being honest, or are they playing a deeper game? Machiavellianism is not just a personality type. It is a method of survival in a competitive world. It thrives in places where empathy is punished and manipulation is ignored. This is why you will find Machiavellian individuals in environments that reward results, not process. In politics, they rise quickly. In corporate culture, they speak the language of efficiency. In media, they know what stories to tell. In relationships, they give just enough to make you stay and take just enough to stay ahead. They may never raise their voice. They may never raise a hand, but they will change how you see yourself. They will bend your choices until you choose what benefits them. And the worst part, they will smile while you do it. This is why you cannot judge danger only by visible harm. You must also look at invisible control, at influence that does not ask, but assumes. Ask yourself now, have you ever felt like your thoughts were no longer your own? Have you ever followed someone without knowing why? Have you ever apologized even when you were not at fault? These are signs, subtle but real. They show that Machiavellianism is not just out there, it is around you. It may already be inside the systems you trust, the leaders you follow, even the people you love. Not because you are weak, but because they are trained to harm. And once they know what you need, they never let go. You might think manipulation only happens in big places, in politics, in media, in high levels of power. But that is not where it starts. It starts small. It starts close. It starts with someone you know. Maybe a friend who always asks for help, but disappears when you need them. A coworker who takes your ideas and calls them their own. A partner who slowly convinces you that everything is your fault. They are not shouting. They are not threatening. They are shaping your thoughts without your permission. This is Machiavellianism in daily life. It is not a violent storm. It is a slow leak in your confidence, your energy, your trust. The person you think is kind may only be kind when others are watching. The person who listens may only listen to know what to use later. You feel it, but you cannot explain it. You feel drained, confused, unsure of who you are around them. And when you try to speak up, they twist it. You are too sensitive. You are imagining things. You misunderstood. This is not just abuse. This is strategy. Psychologist Simon Baron-Cohen described this kind of behavior as zero empathy, the absence of interest in how others feel. But Machiavellians go further. They not only lack empathy, they use your emotions against you. They learn what hurts you. Then they avoid it when they need you, and use it when they want control. They do not use violence. They use silence. They make you question your reality until you give up trying to defend it. This is why many victims of psychological manipulation do not even realize it is happening. The scars are not on the skin, they are in the mind. This is the paradox. You think someone cares. They act like they do, but they only act that way when it serves them. You are not imagining it. In a study by psychologists Daniel Jones and Delroy Paul Hughes, individuals with high Machiavellian traits were shown to excel in social situations, not because they were authentic, but because they were observant. They mimicked emotional intelligence. They practiced charm, but underneath, there was no connection, only calculation. Think about how many relationships you have had that started with strong attention, affection, and care, then slowly turned into control, fear, and confusion. That is not coincidence. That is a pattern. Have you ever felt like you were giving more than you had, while they seemed fine, unaffected? Have you ever apologized again and again until you stopped remembering why? Have you ever stayed in a situation that felt wrong, but you could not explain what was happening? That is the trap, not with chains, but with influence. The Machiavellian person creates a web. They never attack head-on, they let you fall into it, one step at a time, and when you try to leave, they remind you how much they have done for you, how much you owe them, how much worse it will be without them. They do not scream, they whisper, and the whisper is always one message. You cannot do this without me, but you can. Recognizing Machiavellianism is not about cutting people off. It is about cutting through the illusion. It is about seeing patterns you were not taught to see. Behaviors that hide behind smiles, control that hides behind kindness. This is how the world changes, not by exposing dictators, but by exposing dynamics. The question is not whether these people exist. The question is, what part of you made you ignore the signs? What fear made you stay? And what truth are you still not ready to face? You were raised to believe in right and wrong, that good actions bring reward, that bad actions bring consequences, that morality is a constant line. But not everyone sees the world that way. The person with a Machiavellian mindset does not ask if something is right, they ask if it works. They do not ask if something is fair, they ask if it moves them forward. To them, morality is not a compass, it is a costume. This is how they survive. While most people hesitate before crossing a line, the Machiavellian person is already calculating the next step. If others get hurt, that is part of the cost. If someone loses trust, it can be repaired or replaced. They do not believe in shared values. They believe in flexible ones. They believe people are not guided by truth, but by fear, need, and emotion. So they use those forces. They do not fight against human nature. They ride it like a wave. This worldview is not emotional. It is practical, and for many of them, it works. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote that moral systems are created by the weak to control the strong. Whether you agree or not, this idea matches the Machiavellian lens. They believe morality is a tool, not a truth, and the person who depends on it is often the person left behind. What happens when someone with that mindset enters power? What happens when they lead a group, a company, a country? They do not serve the public. They serve the outcome. They do not look for what is just. They look for what is useful. We see the signs, policies that benefit the few, rules that change without reason, apologies that never lead to change, promises made to calm us, then broken without hesitation. This is not random. This is a structure built on strategic deception. In a study by psychologist Kevin Williams, people high in Machiavellianism consistently rated themselves as morally flexible. They saw ethical boundaries as obstacles, not rules. And when given a chance to benefit at the expense of others without being punished, they took it. Now pause, ask yourself, if someone sees the world through this lens, do they ever truly trust anyone, or do they only pretend to? If someone views honesty as weakness, how do you communicate with them? You do not. You obey, you adjust, you stop sharing, you walk on eggshells, and they win. This is the silent effect of Machiavellianism on a society. It turns relationships into games. It turns trust into a risk. It makes us question the value of kindness. It makes us hide our intentions because we fear they will be used against us. And slowly, we all begin to adopt their view. We stop expecting fairness. We stop believing in truth. We stop holding leaders accountable. We start saying things like, "That is just how the world works." But is it? Or is it just how the world works when Machiavellians are in charge? Here is a harder question. If doing the right thing brings no reward, and doing the wrong thing brings power, what choice will you make? What part of you wants to resist that system, and what part of you secretly wants to join it? Not everyone is a manipulator. but many follow one. This is not because they are weak. It is because they are human. The Machiavellian personality does not need to control everyone. They only need to understand what people want. Safety, direction, success, connection, and offer it just enough to gain obedience. They do not force loyalty, they design it. They do it through charm, by pretending to listen, by making people feel seen. Then slowly they create dependency. They offer help, but make sure it has strings. They give praise, but only in exchange for control. Over time, the people around them stop questioning. They begin to repeat the manipulator's ideas. They begin to defend them, even when harmed, and they believe it is their own choice. This is not just a personal dynamic. This is a collective one. History shows it. Leaders who ruled with lies, fear, and manipulation often gained massive support, not because they were loved, but because they filled a need. They made people feel safe, even when it was an illusion. The crowd does not always want truth. Sometimes the crowd wants certainty, and Machiavellians offer it with confidence. In his research, psychologist Roy Baumeister showed that people are more likely to submit to authority when they are uncertain, afraid, or isolated. In those moments, logic weakens, belief grows, and those who speak with conviction take control. Now think about your own life. Have you ever followed someone who made you feel special, only to find yourself trapped in their expectations? Have you ever defended someone, even when their actions were unfair? Have you ever silenced your own judgment because their approval felt more important? This is how it begins. A soft shift in your boundaries, a slow erosion of your thoughts, until you start to confuse their power with your purpose. The Machiavellian person creates stories. They position themselves as misunderstood, as the only one who can lead, as the only one who truly knows what is right. And if you doubt them, they imply you are ungrateful, disloyal, or lost. So you stay, you serve, you silence yourself. Not out of fear, but out of belief. That is the most dangerous part. When someone manipulates through fear, the resistance is easy to see. But when they manipulate through trust, it becomes almost invisible, even to you. This is why victims of emotional control often defend the ones who hurt them. This is why groups protect their leaders, even when exposed. This is why the Machiavellian path keeps spreading. Not because it is forced, because it is welcomed. You start to believe that compromise is maturity, that silence is wisdom, that obedience is loyalty. And by the time you realize what you have become, you have already given up your voice. This is not your fault. Manipulation does not look like war. It looks like love. It looks like leadership. It looks like protection, until it is too late. The philosopher Thomas Hobbes believed that people naturally seek security, even at the cost of freedom, that we surrender power to avoid chaos. Machiavellians understand this. They offer order, they offer structure, but what they do not offer is truth. So you must ask yourself again, are you following because it feels right, or because it feels safe? And is that safety even real? Not every problem screams. Some grow slowly, quietly, until the structure collapses, and no one remembers when the cracks began. This is the effect of Machiavellianism. It does not destroy with fire, it decays from within. At first the signs are small, trust begins to fade, conversations grow colder, people stop sharing ideas, teams stop collaborating, rules become flexible, but only for those in control. Then comes silence, fear, withdrawal, a culture that no longer values honesty, but rewards survival. This is not an accident, it is a pattern. Machiavellianism poisons the invisible systems, trust, morale, fairness. It creates environments where people stop speaking, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know it will be used against them. You see this in families. One person dictates the rules, the mood, the truth. The rest adapt. They begin to censor themselves. They stop asking for respect. Over time, they forget what healthy even feels like. You see it in companies. The manager who takes credit for others' work rises. The employee who speaks out is labeled a problem. Everyone else learns the same lesson: stay quiet or be punished. The talent leaves, the loyal stay. But loyalty in this context means submission. You see it in governments. The leader who manipulates public opinion is praised for being clever. Transparency becomes rare. Power becomes unchecked. The people begin to question less, not because they trust more, but because they fear more. And in every case, the culture shifts. You stop expecting fairness. You start accepting exploitation. This is how Machiavellianism destroys from the inside. It teaches people that values are weakness, that kindness is a liability, that the safest path is silence. But the cost is not just institutional, it is psychological. People who live under manipulative behavior develop symptoms that are easy to dismiss, but hard to heal. Chronic self-doubt, anxiety, emotional numbness, confusion. Psychologist Jennifer Freud called this betrayal trauma, the kind of trauma that comes not from strangers but from those you were supposed to trust. It rewires how you see the world. You begin to anticipate betrayal. You start filtering every word, every look. You trust less. You think more. But the thinking is not clarity, it is survival. Over time, your relationships become transactional. You give only when you are sure it is safe. You open up only when you know it will not be used. And slowly, intimacy dies, not just between people. Within you, you begin to second-guess your instincts. You question your memory. You forget what it felt like to live without calculation, because the game has become normal, and the normal has become toxic. This is the slow violence of Machiavellianism. No blood, no sound, just emptiness, where connection used to be. Now step back, look at society. A culture that does not reward truth, a system that elevates manipulation, a population that feels isolated, distracted, and uncertain. Is this the natural state of modern life? Or is this the outcome of decades of invisible control? Maybe you feel it too, the way people look away instead of speaking up, the way honesty seems naive, the way leaders dodge responsibility without consequence, the way people say what is easy, not what is real. You are not imagining it, and that is why this matters. Because the more we normalize this mindset, the more we erode the very things that hold us together: trust, empathy, purpose. Once those are gone, what remains? A society where no one believes anyone. A system where fear is more useful than truth. A culture that looks strong on the outside, but is already falling apart within. So ask yourself one final question before we go further. If this is the world we live in now, who benefits from keeping it this way? You have seen the signs, in leaders, in systems, in people you know. But now the question turns inward. What happens when you finally recognize Machiavellianism? Not just around you, but within you. Because we all adapt to survive. And in a world that rewards manipulation, even the honest begin to bend. You keep quiet to keep the job. You flatter someone you do not respect. You avoid conflict by pretending to agree. You play along because it is easier than speaking truth. These are not crimes, they are compromises, but each one moves you a little further from who you used to be. This is how Machiavellianism spreads, not just by being taught, by being tolerated, by being rewarded, by becoming normal. And the moment it becomes normal, the damage is done. The scariest part is not that some people manipulate, it is that most people do not even notice anymore. It becomes culture, a company that thrives on silence, a government that thrives on control, a relationship that thrives on fear, a community that loses its voice. Over time, no one trusts, no one cares, no one dares to stand out. That is the true cost. Not chaos, not violence, emptiness, the absence of meaning, the erosion of trust, the slow death of values. And it all begins with one silent decision: play the game or be left behind. But here is the part that was never said. You still have a choice. Not an easy one, not a quick one, but a real one. You can begin by noticing Noticing who benefits when you stay quiet. Noticing who changes when someone else is watching. Noticing who builds trust and who uses it. Then you speak. Even when your voice shakes, you ask. Even when the answer may hurt, you choose honesty. Even when it costs something. That is how it ends. Not with confrontation, but with awareness. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And now, you have seen it. You have looked at something that most people refuse to face. You have opened a door that cannot be closed. Now ask yourself, what did you see in your life, in your world, in your mind, that you did not want to see before this?
Write it down in the comments. Not for us, for you.
Write what others fear to admit. Share what you now understand. And if this opened something inside you, share this video with someone who is still asleep, someone who still calls cruelty strategy, who still thinks silence is strength, who still believes the powerful must be good. They may not listen, but they might, and that is enough. Subscribe if you want to see more, not just more content, but more of what lies beneath. We are not done. The world has many more dark truths to reveal. You will see them, and you will not be the same after you do. You were never meant to be blind. You were meant to see, and now you do.